Today we're going to talk about something different. It's not a mechanical watch today. Quartz divers sometimes don't get a lot of love from mechanical watch aficionados, but I definitely think they have their place. There are the traditional battery-powered quartz watches, along with some other novel power technologies. For example, Seiko has their line of kinetic quartz watches that include some very nice diver models. Kinetic technology uses a spinning rotor on the back, which is very similar to what you would find in an automatic mechanical watch, but instead of winding a mainspring, the rotor drives a small electrical generator that charges a lithium secondary battery cell to power the quartz movement. I've owned a few kinetic watches over the years, and it's a neat technology that kind of gives you the illusion of wearing a mechanical watch. Citizen took a little different tack and introduced their EcoDrive models back in the mid-1990s. EcoDrive uses a solar cell located just behind the translucent dial. Previous attempts at solar-powered watches had used a solar cell mounted on the front of the dial, which detracted from the cosmetic appeal of the watch. The EcoDrive solar cell converts sunlight or artificial light to an electrical current, which is then used to charge a titanium lithium-ion secondary battery. Power reserve from a full charge for the EcoDrive watches varies by watch model and whatever functions you're using, but typically it's around 180 days or 6 months for power reserve, which is considerably longer than the 40 to 50 hours normally encountered with a mechanical movement. And Seiko has recently brought out their own line of solar-powered watches called Solar, and I believe they're using a technology that's probably very similar to what Citizen is using on EcoDrives. I've owned several EcoDrive models over the years, and I have an early diver in titanium that's almost 14 years old now, and it's still ticking away just fine. The watch I'm reviewing today is the Citizen Aqualand EcoDrive model BJ2004-08E. The Aqualand models, both battery-powered and EcoDrive, have been around for quite a while, and they offer additional features that are desirable to scuba divers or water sports enthusiasts. This particular model I'm holding features both chronograph and depth gauge. The size of this watch, if you go across the top of the watch here, is 40 millimeters, not including the pushers, the crown, or the depth sensor over here at the 9 o'clock position. If you go all the way from the depth sensor to the crown, it's about 50 millimeters. And thickness, the watch is about 14 millimeters thick. It uses conventional 20 millimeter lug spacing here, and it weighs about 4 ounces or 112 grams, and that's with the aftermarket strap, rubber strap that I have on it here. As far as construction, it's all stainless steel. The top side is mostly all brushed, and if you turn it over, the back, the bottom of the lugs, the case back are polished. This particular model has the gold tone accents, so it gives it a two-tone look, but there is an all stainless version out there. It's the model BJ2000-09E. Being a diver, of course, it has a screw down crown here at 3 o'clock. It's got the cross-cut knurling on it, and since it has chronograph function, it has pushers at 2 o'clock and at 4 o'clock. On the left side of the case is the pressure sensor. That's this protrusion at 9 o'clock here, and then this small indentation at 10 o'clock is actually the water sensor. When the watch is submerged, this water sensor will detect that it's underwater and will put the watch automatically into dive mode. Has a unidirectional 60-minute diver's bezel, flat mineral glass crystal, which is pretty much flush with the bezel. This is a little prone to scratches, and I actually do have a couple of scratches on this one from use. It's water resistant to 200 meters, of course, so it makes it suitable for scuba diving. And it has non-drilled through lugs. And as I said, the watch came on a rubber diver's compression strap, but I swapped it out for this rubber strap that has a push button deployant clasp on it. The movement in the watch is Citizen model B741-H16471. It's an analog quartz eco-drive movement. The movement hacks if you unscrew the crown and pull it out to the second position. It'll stop the movement so that you can set time. And this movement is typical of quartz watches. It loses and gains a few seconds a month, so fairly accurate over the long haul. Getting to the dial again, it's got a black translucent dial. You can't really see the solar cell underneath, which is good. You notice there are 3 subsidiary dials. I'll go through those. The sub dial at 6 o'clock is seconds for normal time mode. The sub dial at 9 o'clock is a 24-hour time indicator, so you can tell whether it's morning or night. And then the sub dial at 12 o'clock is chronograph minutes, and it also indicates the function of the watch. It has 6 hands, hour and minute hand for time mode. There's a large orange hand here which is used for chronograph second timing as well as indicating depth. And then each of the subsidiary dials have their own small hands. Has nice luminous treatment on the markers and the hands. The little bead at 12 o'clock on the outer bezel is also luminous, so it glows quite well in the dark. You notice it has a date window at 3 o'clock. It's black numerals on a white background. So let's talk about watch functions. Normal time mode, which the watch is in right now. Again, for normal time mode, you'd use the minute hand and hour hand on the main dial, and then small seconds at 6 o'clock and 24-hour indication at 9 o'clock. In time mode, you notice that the orange hand, the big orange hand, is stationary, and up on the inner bezel you can see some letters. It's currently pointing to LV2. There's also an LV1 and an NG, and those are charge indications for the eco-drive movement. On LV2, which the pointer is on now, it indicates that the watch is charged up almost to a full charge and is ready for diving. If the orange hand were to move to the LV1 position, it would indicate a partial charge, and they recommend that the watch not be counted on for more than about 60 minutes of diving. And then if it moves further clockwise to the NG position, that's basically the no-go. It will keep time, but it won't enter dive mode automatically, so you can't use it for depth readings once it gets to the NG position. The next mode talk about is chronograph mode. To put the watch into chronograph mode, you push the pusher at 4 o'clock, give it a long press, and you'll see the large orange hand starting to rotate clockwise. In addition, the small hand up here at 12 o'clock is moving to the 0 position, on the minute counter. So now it's basically ready to go into chronograph mode. To start the chronograph, we push the pusher at 2 o'clock, like you would with a normal chronograph. You notice it's counting seconds on the large hand. To stop it, give it another push. If we want to reset the chronograph at this point, we give a short push on the 4 o'clock pusher, and we've reset it now. And you can start it again. I'll let it run for a few seconds here. The chronograph mode on this watch is a little bit different. I'll stop it now. And let's say that we want to go back to time mode now. What we do is give another long push on the 4 o'clock pusher. And you'll notice the large orange hand is counting backwards now, going counterclockwise. In addition, the small hand at 12 o'clock is also moving back into the center of that orange shaped slice of pie there. So now basically the watch is back in normal time mode. The large orange hand is pointing back at the charge indicator, and it's ready to go into dive mode. So let's talk about dive mode. When the watch is submerged, again, this little sensor on the side of the case will detect that it's in water and put the watch into dive mode automatically. Let me see if I can start that. There. Now it's in dive mode. And when it's in dive mode, the large orange hand is used to measure depth on this inner bezel ring. And this particular watch is calibrated in feet. It goes from 0 feet to 120 feet. And the large orange hand will act just like a depth gauge when you're diving and point to the current depth that you're at. When you exit the water, the watch will return to time mode as it is now. And if you want to see your maximum depth that you achieved on the last dive, you just press the 2 o'clock pusher. I don't have anything in memory right now, so it's pointing to 0, but if I'd been diving to 50 or 60 or 80 feet, it would move around to that position on the depth scale. Push it again to put it back in time mode. So that's diving mode. Let's talk a little bit about aesthetics. Where does this watch fit in? It's a fairly large watch with the depth sensor sticking out the side here. I view it as a nice dive watch that probably has more utility to snorkelers than it does to scuba divers. The depth gauge function is nice to have, nice for a backup, but I certainly wouldn't trust it as my primary depth gauge for diving, scuba diving. So, you know, it's a nice to have feature as a backup for a diver's depth gauge or a diving computer, but that's about it. The chronograph function is obviously usable. However, it's a little quirky, and since it probably places a fairly high demand on the internal battery, I don't see it getting used all that much. The dial is a little bit cluttered with all of the subsidiary dials and the date window, but it's not bad. You can actually read the watch fairly well underwater, and I have had this diving on several dives. So in summary, I think the EcoDrive power source itself is ideal for something like a dive watch where you're outdoors in bright light for a large portion of your activity. The Aqualand would serve well as a primary dive watch for any kind of water sports activity, but there are probably better, less complicated choices even among citizens' fairly extensive line of EcoDrive dive watches. Well, I give it a thumbs up. Recognize that the Aqualand is a niche watch that probably appeals more to the gadget heads among us, but hey, there's nothing wrong with being a gadget head, and if this is the kind of dive watch that trips your trigger, I say go for it. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and stand by for another review.